Cessna Citation Longitude. Here's a question for every jet fan who sat through a red-eye and swore they'd never do that cabin again. What if there's a super midsize that flies 3,500 nautical miles, cruises near 483 knots, lands you fresh with a 6-foot-tall flat-floor cabin, and still keeps the ops team smiling when the spreadsheet shows Tuesday in headwinds? Hang with me to the end. I'll reveal the single design choice that secretly makes the Longitude feel bigger in real life than in brochures, and why pilots, passengers, and accountants keep giving it a thumbs up. The Cessna Citation Longitude, Textron Aviation's super midsize flagship, is built around a simple mission: cross continents comfortably, quietly, and predictably, without carrying around the cost footprint of a large cabin ship. It is the bigger, longer-legged sibling to the Latitude, sharing the family's circular cross-section, but stretching the cabin and performance to hit the sweet spot between U.S. coast-to-coast and transatlantic hops. On the ramp, the Longitude doesn't need to shout. The proportions are clean, the stance confident, the wing sweep purposeful. In the cockpit, the Garmin G5000 philosophy is familiar and modern at the same time. It's the kind of flight deck that reduces mental noise when weather and reroutes try to steal your bandwidth. In the cabin, the vibe is calmly premium. 6 feet of stand-up height, 6 feet 5 inches width, a 25-foot living space, and that flat floor you appreciate every time you walk to the galley without doing a tightrope act. Key features. What sells this airplane to passengers isn't a gimmick. It's the compound effect of comfort and quiet. The 2-club plus divan or double club layouts let 8 to 10 travelers ride like grown-ups, not test dummies. The air is clean and well managed. The temperature doesn't swing. The acoustics turn conversations into conversations rather than shouting matches. Storage is adult-sized and accessible. Wi-Fi and power are where you actually need them, not as an afterthought. And the walk-in baggage compartment is accessible throughout the flight, which sounds minor until you remember the sweater you need is always in the suitcase 2 rows away on other jets. Up front, the G5000's large glass and touchscreen controllers keep the panel uncluttered. Crew workload drops, and your ride feels unflustered because the people flying it are too. Key specifications. Let's anchor the numbers that matter when you're picking a machine for real missions. The Longitude runs about 73 feet, 2 inches long, spans 68 feet 11 inches, and stands 19 feet 5 inches tall. The cabin gives you 72 inches of height, 77 inches of width, and 25 feet 2 inches of length with a flat floor. Typical seating is 8 to 12 depending on galley and divan choices. Under the cowlings live a pair of Honeywell HTF7700L turbofans, quiet, efficient members of the HTF7000 family, matched to a wing that's designed to sit in that comfortable mid-80 cruise envelope without drama. Put it all together, and you're looking at a maximum range on the order of 3,500 nautical miles at 4-passenger, long-range profiles, and a maximum cruise near 483 knots true, with the headroom to ride above weather at flight level 450 when it helps. Performance, handling, and real-world range. Dispatchers love airplanes that act like they've done this before. The Longitude's long leg profile isn't theoretical. It was drawn around real schedules: JFK to LAX and back-to-back, New York to London under friendly winds, Dallas to Bogota, Seattle to Honolulu when the numbers line up. In practice, crews talk about a stable, honest handling feel that makes short finals civilized and long legs pleasantly boring. At cruise, the cabin hush is the first thing nervous flyers mention. At landing, You'll remember how your ears didn't hate you. The wing and engine pairing keep fuel burn disciplined without squeezing you into long-range speeds that feel like watching paint dry. If you're traveling for business, time is money. If you're traveling for pleasure, peace is money. And this jet pays in both currencies. Cabin experience and why people notice. Open the door, and the first impression is space you can use. 6 feet of height means even tall travelers stop hunching. The 6-foot 5-inch width lets club seats breathe. Elbows exist without negotiations. The flat floor is the unsung hero. You don't think about it until you step onto a cabin with a dropped aisle and realize how much energy you spend walking around that trench. The galley feels like an actual workspace, not a science experiment. Lighting is layered, so late flights feel cinematic rather than fluorescent. The acoustics are genuinely relaxing on this platform. There's an easy, even hush that doesn't induce that pressure cooker fatigue you remember from noisier cabins. Quick joke. The cabin is quiet enough that your whisper-level business strategy talk can remain a whisper. Just don't schedule the board meeting in the lav. Avionics, safety, and crew workload. Garmin's G5000 ecosystem is the right kind of modern. Large, readable glass for situational awareness, logical menus when you need depth, and smart integration with flight guidance that lets crews stay ahead of a busy day. Add in steep approach capability when the airport list demands it, and you've got a cockpit that gets out of the way so your pilots can fly the airplane. That translates directly to passenger experience. Smooth descents feel intentional because they are. Shorter queues for taxi and quicker turns don't feel like a gamble. If you're a frequent flyer, you learn to read a cockpit's body language from seat 2A. In the Longitude, that language usually says, "We've got this." Costs, pricing, and ownership reality. Sticker numbers move with the market, but the story holds steady. A new, well-equipped Longitude typically sits around the $30 million neighborhood, with recent market ranges for late-model pre-owned examples commonly in the low to mid $20 million, depending on total time, programs, and options. What your accounting team will track after delivery are block-hour realities: fuel, maintenance, crew, nav/landing, and the value of longer maintenance intervals. Textron makes a point about 800-hour 18-month checks and competitive direct operating costs. In the field, operators point to the predictable maintenance ecosystem for the HTF7700 family as a stress reducer. Translation: the airplane aims to keep your schedule intact and your surprises small. Two of the most valuable things in business aviation. Longitude versus the field. If you're cross-shopping, here's the honest take. Large cabin aircraft will out-volume and out-brag the Longitude, but they drag around costs that don't make sense for every mission. Smaller super mid-size rivals can match pieces of the spec sheet, but many stumble on cabin feel, baggage access, or the kind of long-leg hush that makes a 5-hour flight feel like 3. The Longitude's advantage is a holistic one: the cross-section, the flat floor, the acoustic work, the baggage access, the G5000 up front, and that 3,500 nanometer range, all pulling in the same direction. It's the airplane that behaves like a slightly bigger jet when you're on board, and like a slightly smaller one when you're paying the bills. Myths, misunderstandings, and lesser-known details. Myth 1 says super midsize can't do real intercontinental. In practice, the Longitude's range and FL450 ceiling make a surprising number of city pairs practical with contingency, especially when you're smart about wines and tanks. Myth 2 says comfort is a large cabin privilege. Sit in this cabin for 4 hours and tell me you still believe that. The geometry and flat floor earn their keep minute by minute. Lesser-known detail I love. The baggage area is accessible in flight and sized to be useful, not just technically there. When the meeting jacket you actually need is in a suitcase, you'll understand why that's a big deal. And because we're all friends here, a tiny joke. Yes, the aisle is flat. No, that doesn't make it a treadmill. Save the cardio for the hotel. A day in service. Imagine a Monday that starts in Teterboro and ends in Van Nuys with a client visit in the middle. You launch briskly, climb to the mid-40s, and settle into that trademark hush. The cabin feels like a rolling conference room. Notes get written, calls get made. Someone naps like a champion. You land, do the work, and turn in time to push west with dinner on board. The lighting shifts, the cabin keeps calm, and you arrive without a headache. Tuesday asks for Dallas, then Bogota, and the airplane shrugs. This is what the Longitude does. It turns hard days into easy ones. Key specifications. Here's the snapshot you can read aloud without turning into a spreadsheet. Length 73 feet 2 inches. Wingspan 68 feet 11 inches. Height 19 feet 5 inches. Cabin height 6 feet. Width 6 feet 5 inches. Length 25 feet 2 inches. Flat floor throughout, typically 8 to 12 seats. Power by twin Honeywell HTF7700L turbofans from the HTF7000 family. Max cruise near 483 knots true, service ceiling to 45,000 feet, and a long-range profile around 3,500 nautical miles that unlocks smart transcontinental and selective transatlantic city pairs when winds cooperate. Money talk. Think in bands, not absolutes. New examples around the $30 million mark depending on spec. Late model pre-owned in the low to mid $20 million. Day-to-day costs swing with fuel and utilization, but the pitch here is predictable maintenance intervals and a mature engine family supporting a clean dispatch record. If you watch the right metrics, crew duty, maintenance planning, block times, the Longitude's value story gets clearer with every quarter. The final reveal. You waited for the design choice that makes the Longitude feel bigger in real life than on paper. It's the cabin cross-section plus the flat floor geometry. That pairing quietly changes how you live on board. Seats breathe, aisles feel natural, and moving around at FL450 doesn't feel like walking a trench. Add the hush from the HTF7700L installation and the wing's sweet spot cruise, and you get a jet that punches above its weight on comfort while staying disciplined on cost. That's why this airplane keeps finding its way into hangars where the job isn't to impress a ramp, it's to win Tuesday. If this breakdown helped you see the super midsize game differently, tap subscribe so YouTube brings you our next premiere automatically. Tell me in the comments, would you trade a little top-end speed for a cabin that genuinely restores you on 5-hour legs? I'm featuring the sharpest take next episode. For members-only polls, behind-the-scenes fleet notes, and early looks, hit join on our channel page. And if this video made your day, drop a super thanks. Your highlighted comment helps power the next investigation and gets a shout-out on screen. Don't end the session here. Jump to our business jet playlist to see how the Longitude stacks up against its nearest rivals. If you're curious how cabin geometry shapes human comfort, cue up our cross-section deep dive right after this. YouTube should be surfacing it on the right. I'll meet you there.